Building Trust podcast, where we sit down with business owners, tradespeople, real estate professionals, and community leaders to unpack exactly how trust is actually built in the real world. I'm your host, Ben Thomas, Business Development Manager for Tennessee Home Inspectors, the co founder of the Trusted Trade Hub, and the owner of Aerial Staffing. On this show, our ultimate goal is turning trust into triumph. So today we have a very special guest who's actually a founding advisory council member for our very own Trusted Trade Hub, serving as our strategic alliances and community impact advisor. Kurt Roskopf is a master community organizer who has served over 100 organizations, probably over in the last 10 years. And he sits at the incredible intersection of veteran support, disability inclusion, and community networking. Kurt serves on the board of directors for Helpopedia, works fiercely to combat veteran suicide with Project Die Hard, and is the America's Chair for the Impactful Veterans Network at the Spirit of the Game Foundation. He is also the architect of the Give Me Five or the Curtilist program, which helps businesses build a real ecosystem by injecting energy, service, education, civics, and fun into their professional networking. And if that wasn't enough, he's even been a water ski performer for 40 years. So, Kurt, we are incredibly honored to have you. Welcome to the Building Trust podcast.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. What a worthy, flagship program here, Building Trust. It's at the center point of all connecting that happens all around the world. And so I'm trusting that we're going to get a lot of attention to our interview today because it's what everybody is navigating all day long, every day. Let's do it.
All right. So you have a history of serving over 100 organizations over the last 10 years. So focusing heavily on community organizing and nonprofit management, what initially drew you to this level of community involvement? And how is your approach to being solution driven, being a solution driver? How's that evolved over time?
Well, it's the benefit of like look going back to when I grew up, the great adult community that I fortunately had responding around me and available around me, and then just great people, looking at things like the power of one and then experiencing that, meeting a person after an X and so forth, so looking at what you do, Ben, in terms of how you're serving through business networking and through technology and through all the processes and doing these live streams with us now. That's just the, you know, constant experience, looking at my activities today prior to being on this interview, just, people showing up all day long with an appetite and a hunger, to make a difference, to bring out their energy. And so the mantras are through faith community, is a big influence for me. And the service sector, community organizations. Like you said, I'm a water skier, so
Yeah.
the water skiing I do is available through a water ski club, which is a 501c3 organization. And so there's the whole part of it where it's 100 people getting together to have fun with our shared passion in water skiing. And at the same time, we're an educational institution because we're sharing with folks that otherwise wouldn't have this drive into water skiing. We're providing that. So like you said, 40 years of experience for me in show skiing, I now can go out and around the world and share that. So it's, and you mentioned the Give Me Five program. So where that comes from is I look at 6 lanes of life. So I talked already about a few of them. We're talking our faith community, our service attachments, our educational pursuits. We can look at government with the civic activities and the agency work. And then business, we talk business networking, in terms of that. And then I talk about what's fun gets done, and you do Fun Friday, with
Yep.
us. so on and so forth. So that drives me to hobbies, pastime, leisure activities, travel, sports, recreation, all these things. When we say we work to live, what's living it to Ben Thomas? And that's
Right.
really where I look to go with folks that I meet out there. So any of you out there watching and listening to this, that's really my North Star objective, is to find out what we like to do when it's just like throw responsibility aside, and this is our time. And when we're in our own space, how do we fill that space? How do we express ourselves? And that's a real opportunity we have as 8 billion people on the planet. And I talk about a reference to an author who wrote about 80-year-olds, and declared a finding, representing a finding that they feel that they made, is that it's about 80,000 people that that life journey of 80 years is lived with, including the, like, if you're birthed in a hospital, all those people who are
Right.
right there with you as a baby, and then, public education and going serve, all the services you need, even if you're going to a restaurant. So you look at what people around the world typically do in 80 years. The gentleman shared the findings that the number 80,000 kind of stuck out for him in his research. So that's just really something profound to say, is 8 billion people on the planet, we can figure out, what we want to do with that relationship with 80,000 people that'll drive us, hopefully, to at least 80 years old. Not all of us get to live to be 80 years old, but in that type of a flare, that's something to really think about. Are we grateful for what each and every person does? Do we take people for granted that are playing a role in our life? And so to me, that's the opportunity I've had when you talk about 100 organizations. That's an exercise of me inviting to say, hey, I love your story. If you would like me, Kurt Roskopf, to play a role in your story, I'm happy to play a role through what I do, through what I'm offering, which is to help organize. I love marketing through technology and events, and, volunteer management and nonprofit management. If it's a business, I love talking business, as you guys know, through the trusted tradesman pursuit here. So with that, Ben, where would you like to go with it from there?
So we talk a lot about the transition from transactional networking to building an ecosystem on the Building Trust podcast. It's really important to, make that large impact. So I want to know, how do you define collective impact, and why is it crucial to integrate faith communities, education, service groups, and local government into your business network, or your passion in general? Definitely want to hear you speak more on that.
Well, the experience of life is that we're constantly shifting, so when we sleep at night, or whenever we sleep, if we're not sleeping at night, when we get our sleep, we're kind of in this state of, where we are in our static selves, and then we awake. And as soon as we awake, we decide which hat we're wearing first, whether it's family, whether it's employee. Maybe when you awake, your first concern is I got to get to work. Whatever that is, we pick a role and we're living out in that role. And then when we finish our workday, like I do water skiing, then okay, I put on the hat of water skier. We're constantly jumping through hoops of which role am I expressing myself through right now?
Right.
If I go to a faith experience and so forth, being a congregant of that community, perhaps. So to me, that is just what has come to make sense to me, that in leadership and organizational work and in business acumen, if you're coming from the business perspective, just think, like when I talked about the 80-year-old, think of how many hours of that 80-year-old's life was spent in their career.
Right.
So the big ginormous majority piece of our life is all wrapped up in this identity of what our work time was, being a contributing member of society. So when we're in a business setting, like a business networking group, it's something to really think about. It's great to stay within this bubble of business. At the same time, there are things that people carry while they're, in the structure of business. There are other things weighing upon them. There's other things that they're pushing off to keep the focus on the business topic. But at the same time, to thrive in business, I think we need to take a look at, how are we addressing the other things that that person needs to do right in that day? So you have a schedule. And so say somebody attends Trusted Tradesman, as a networking experience, and then, they're building relationships.
Right.
Say there's 10 people at the table at a networking group. Well, that's each person has the opportunity to meet and build a relationship with a handful of people. And what is it that we might tend to share? Like I just took a trip, this last weekend
Mm-hmm.
and this last week. I spent 8 days in northern Wisconsin. So to have that interchange between people to say, even though our connection is business, the sustainability, if we want a long-term business relationship, there's going to be checkpoints of what do we know about this person? Have they shared anything with us about family? Do they want to share anything with us about family? Maybe they want to keep their family life private and they're the individual that you do business with, and that's it. So to be aware and cognizant of these things can be, in my opinion, very powerful to take that energy of the business relationship, as high and as far as it could. So it's all about how you do business, because you can do business transactional, that I just want a person to come to my point of sale. Either they're going to buy from me or not. And if they're not, sorry I couldn't serve you. Hope you find what you need somewhere else. Or they're doing business with us and provide the service or whatever. And then, fulfill that and you get paid. And then once you're paid, the whole thing stops. That's fine. But, in business, there's this whole idea of referrals.
Yeah.
And I believe so. The big mantra in going to a networking group and saying, okay, I feel I'm going to attract referrals from this networking group, first of all, is to lead by example. So you figuring out how to make a good match with those you're meeting and to provide those you're meeting referral, because then it will insinuate potential reciprocity to say, hey, I gave you a referral. Maybe it'll help you keep me in mind for getting a referral to me. But that whole relationship, the acumen in sales is facts tell, stories sell. So if we can take our business and give it this air of it being a movement.
Mm-hmm.
So like you, Ben, you have this vision and you have extra energy in what you do because you feel that you're committed to a movement through what you're doing with me and with other people. We feel this energy that it's not just what we're doing today. We can get a sense of where you're going,
Yeah.
and now we
Connect.
have a clarity of what we're participating in,
Yes.
and that's a huge part of it. And so and we're people. It's this thing of like with listening, or when you say something, it's, people may forget what you said, but they're certainly going to remember how you made them feel.
Right.
And so when you can connect on other levels, and in marketing, they call that affinity marketing. So if somebody likes to do fishing, and you say, hey, what'd you do this week or whatever, and I went up north or whatever, and then you're kind of aware, like, I heard before that this guy fishes, and you say, hey, did you get a chance to fish while you were up there, or were you by any lake? And then, oh yeah, and I caught this big one and whatever. When we offer that opportunity for people to share a personal story, and you can add that personal connection into the business experience, that starts to separate you and distinguish you from other opportunities people have elsewhere to get the same products or services that you deliver and represent.
Right. And so I want to hear more about the Give Me Five philosophy. You developed a concept called the Give Me Five program or the Curtis program, and it injects faith, energy, service, education, civics, and fun into professional gatherings. How does bringing these non-business elements into a room change the dynamic for an entrepreneur who might be struggling behind the scenes and playing the fake it till you make it game?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. Now, first of all, when you come to a business event and you're showing up, and how we serve you and work with you and do that thing with you, it matters whether you're a business to consumer business or if you're a business to business. So
Right.
now when I speak to it, if I'm speaking out to you out there that are a business to consumer business, well, your avatar for who you're trying to reach is a particular consumer out there as an avatar. We all know that when we provide our consumer things, it really could be anybody, but when we set up our marketing strategy, we tend to decide an avatar to really build a concise marketing message for someone. And so in a business networking group, the idea is exposure to reach more homes. Like here you are talking to me, and I'm in my house. So reaching me at a household level is very meaningful for people who have a business to consumer business to look at. Maybe I will buy their product as a consumer, as a resident of this house. you know that's one aspect. And then the other aspect, if you're a business to business, you're looking for the decision maker, you're looking for the owner. And so that becomes very powerful, that if you can just cut to the chase and bypass all the gatekeepers and the receptionists and so forth, and just get right to the person who's going to decide whether the company is going to benefit from your product or service, that's very powerful. So that's what a business networking group offers. So now to my Give Me Five program, again, I mentioned 6 lanes of life. So when you're talking business, okay, so we're sitting in this, you know, productive member of society role, income generating role. Businesses are money making machines. So when I talk about Give Me Five, so now I'm talking about the 5 other lanes of life. So first of all, when you represent your business, people want to know that your business is legal, right? Conformance, like if you're an insurance agent, or like you just said, continuing education. Why is Aaron at continuing education? Or maybe we said that before we started the show, but that is an example of what's going on right now. Aaron is our friend Aaron with, Trusted Tradesman, is getting continuing education, and that's towards being certified as a home inspector, correct?
Right, he's certified master. So right now he's teaching realtors. So we provide free 2 hour CE classes to realtors. So they get continuing education through us from our state certification as a home inspector. So he's teaching that right now.
And you just said state certification. So that's where, the interplay a business has with government adds to the integrity of the company. So you have that aspect. And then we're just talking about education. So whether, like you say, Aaron's providing that, but it could also be provided through maybe a trades college, trades institution,
Right.
or some other university, whatever. There's that whole aspect. And then I talk about nonprofits. See,
Hmm.
pervasive in the business sector is the lack of understanding the importance and the priority that nonprofits have to a for-profit business.
Yes.
That's something that's missed routinely all day long, every day in business. The reason for this is that because of a business being a money making machine, to be able to partner with a nonprofit, see, a nonprofit, yes, needs to make money, fundraising, but the idea is that the nonprofit structure doesn't require to keep driving a surplus and, creating that, dividends or stocks or, it doesn't worry about that profiting aspect, nonprofit. So an NGO is very powerful to keep growing into the marketplace and to meeting people. And again, you can navigate in a way is for how it's helping you reach homes on the B2C basis and how it's helping you reach executives, decision makers, business owners through the nonprofit side. Because we do know that business owners participate in nonprofits, right? So
Right.
I look at it like Visa everywhere you want to be. So if you want to be with executives, that's another place where decision makers hang out is in nonprofits, maybe going to a golf outing that's there to help raise money for. So just imagine the opportunity to be in a foursome playing golf with an executive of a company that you never met before. And maybe that's how the golf outing is set up. You never know what your opportunity there is in the nonprofits. So I promote that a lot
Yeah.
to take advantage of that um, format of nonprofit to help boost the results in your business. And then there's faith community. I mean, that's just a real aspect. I go to faith spaces where I see businesses are showing as a business person showing to be a member of the faith community, but it's an advertising to say, hey, you may not know that I'm also a realtor. I may come into this faith and do the faith activities together with you, but I'm also a realtor. And so if you got a relocation situation, I can help with that. Or if somebody's coming into our faith community and they want resources on their entry into our local faith community, I can do that. So there's all these cross pollination opportunities out in the marketplace, and that helps position you as a very robust person, mover and shaker in the community, because it's like all roads lead to you. It's like the Wizard of Oz with the yellow brick road. It's like
Right.
you're creating these roads into, no matter what's happening out there, there's a great chance that somebody's going to say, hey, have you met Kurt Roskopf? So
Right.
that could happen at a church, that could happen with the Optimist Club, that could happen at the university, that can happen in an advisory council meeting in government, and then again back to all the fun things. So like we talked about water skiing, just think about how all the business people I meet through the sport of water skiing. And for
Yeah.
all of
Right.
you out there, you name your sport, whether it's racquetball or pickleball is very popular today. All those community, all those affinities are a great way to make those connections and have those incremental successes for your business because you know you were available, that people come to know you as someone who is in the trades or or in technology or whatever your shtick is. They get to know that about you, and then when that comes up, ding, reticular activation. Oh, you want to do some marketing stuff or media stuff. Maybe you want to meet my friend Kurt. So that goes across all hobbies, pastime, leisure activities. Just look at travel. It's amazing when we travel, we get far away from our home base, and then all of a sudden we come to find out someone is in some proximity from where you left from, but you didn't meet them close to your home base. You met them out somewhere far out on a travel adventure, and then there's the whole idea of business travel and stuff like that just happens. So, So that becomes a great way to create an outreach program to say, if you don't do these things, people aren't going to know about you. And they call that in sales shaking the trees. You're shaking the trees to say you have to do those things. Otherwise, you're out of sight, out of mind.
Yes.
And then so the Curtilus program is just a play on words as a catalyst that I
Right.
look at these things we're speaking to, lower the barrier to entry, create, you're creating your own luck and you're collapsing a time frame, so that's where I call it a catalyst, but I do a play on words with my name to say when I show up to provide a catalyst, da, 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 you've got Curtilus. Because people are always interested in achieving things in as short a time as possible. So that's what my narrative and my rhetoric is all about, is to share with you and everybody what are my ideas to accomplish business objectives faster, because
Yeah.
the faster you achieve your business objectives, the faster your business grows, and the more your business flourishes, the more flexibility you have to do these other things you want to do in life, because your business can go on without you and it'll be just fine, because you're having these successes.
Yes. And you've emphasized the importance of the wow factor and leveraging FOMO, that fear of missing out to turn any kind of organization, networking group, or just community into a true movement. And so, what are some creative ways that business leaders can inject that same level of energy and excitement into their everyday operations when they're working with their group, or with community leaders, or their employees? How can people bring some of that into their daily life?
Yeah, so the idea is when people experience you and your business and your team, to make this a commitment for each individual to really celebrate the person and really show that gratitude, like when the phone rings, thank you for calling trusted tradesman, thank you for trusting us,
I
and
like that.
when you have a conversation, thank you, like when they ask a question, thank you for asking that question, you know when you kill people with kindness and you have this energy and people can experience happiness, peace, love, joy, the stuff that they're likely, like most of us know when we go around the business marketplace and we do all our business stuff, it's not typical to have a happy-go-lucky, joyful, jolly mantra. But the idea is, why not? Why
Yeah.
can't we
Make
make our
it fun.
business exciting?
Yeah.
So like when I was in high school, I delivered an oratory on nice leadership. Nice leadership, I built in, is it nice as an acronym, noteworthy, innovative, cooperative, and exciting. You know, that
Yeah,
energy matters.
it really
You know,
does.
when I talked about affinity marketing, the reason is somebody is predisposed, whether they like hiking or fishing, that enjoyment aspect. Well, as soon as you're in that zone with people, they're at a higher energy level because of their life experiences in that thing. That's why it's called affinity marketing, because you have a higher energetic reception to your brand when you're connecting on that level. So that's why if folks like racing and they advertise with NASCAR, see, that's affinity marketing, because you're getting all the folks who love racing and you're putting your product, attaching it to that exciting thing of NASCAR racing. Oh my God. It's really exciting. And, so I used to be in the golf business.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to make a return on August 11th. I'm going to be going back to the golf course I used to operate. I'm going to work with the present day operators. They just took over the course this year. And these are the things I'm talking to them about,
Okay.
because I told him a little bit of my condition is a little remorse in not being in the golf course management, role anymore. And I just am going to there to say, let me play a little bit with you. You're doing the thing that I wish I could do a little bit. And if you let me do it with you, we'll have some fun together. So and he loves that energy around it. Like it's not some dry business thing. I'm not trying to sell him anything. It's not like, hey,
Right.
you got to be involved with
Right.
trusted tradesmen or I'm out or any of this stuff. It's just I want to learn about him and his journey and what he's doing with the golf course today and to see if my energy is resonating with his energy. And so far he's given me some feedback that I've got a few things I'm on the right track with perhaps. And that's what I'm
Nice.
trying to figure out because when two business people can get together and their togetherness, unpacks the synergy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the synergy where if I'm meeting with him and he and I get together and he's got what he offers, I got what I offer, we put it together and boom, all of a sudden it's more than 200%. My 100%, his 200%. The whole synergy thing is part of how this whole operating a business engine works.
That's
There's got to
awesome.
be that combustion that happens that makes it a little explosive and pow, and it's got to be well placed, because if you just kind of go out there and blare, it's like cranking up these, you're impressed with your sound system and you just, blast it because you just, you want to show people how great your sound system is, but then they're like, oh my gosh, it's a little loud, you know. So, but to have that in your business, wow. And I talk
Yeah.
about the old days of the old Batman TV show where Batman and Robin are out there and they get to the part of the TV episode where they're combating the criminal, and then it's pow, zam, bam,
Yeah,
bang.
a little flair. Yeah, a little
Yeah,
excitement, a little
it's got this.
onomatopoeia.
Yeah, so it's like in sales they say, it's the sizzle that goes with the steak,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that's the whole idea behind it right there.
Okay. And so, as a board member for helpopedia.org and a fierce disability ally, you've pointed out that society often wrongly views professionals with disabilities as a liability. How can the business community actively work to eradicate this bias and understand the value of an inclusive workforce?
So to start off, with an executive level conversation, we need to get right into metrics and numbers. So we need to make sure before we address the topic that everybody in the conversation understands that 1 in 4 people, so you put the one in four, because it's one that doesn't have a disability, there's three in a pack of four statistically that then okay, maybe they don't have identify with a disability 1 in 4. Now look at this here. That's a 1 to 3 ratio. It's 1 to 3. So
Right.
so the idea is the disability community offers 33% growth, right? That
Mm-hmm.
one finger up again. So if you're just doing
Right.
the 3 fingers, boop, the disability
Yeah.
community, boom, 33% growth. Isn't that
Entire
great?
economy boosted
Like
just like
who
that.
would not want 33% growth?
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's the opportunity. And then you just look at the history on how better serving the disability community helps everybody. So all four of the four benefit by
Yes.
concentrating on where we could close the gap and how we're not best functional for people with disabilities. So let's look at like right now while I'm on this session, we're using Google Meet for a video call. Right now I'm playing closed captioning. Well, where did that inspiration come from? The deaf and hard of hearing community. But the
Mm-hmm.
idea is I benefit from seeing your words on the screen, Ben, because it allows me to, use my visual with hearing you. And we
Yes.
know in activating our brain and there's, penetrating our synaptic gaps and all the things, all the dendrites and all the stuff, the more sensory experience we have, the more enriched of a participation we can work with. And So, like I mentioned, technology, there's, web content accessibility guidelines, and there's the opportunity to get an accessibility app. So, there's all this functionality that comes through being inspired through the disability community, but it helps everyone, depending on what device you're on, how well your device works, stuff like that. These could be little hacks that help other issues you might be having on the technology front with your software, your hardware, all the things. And then with your mobile devices, a lot of the stuff we have there, like we enjoy Siri and Alexa. Well, where did that come from? That came from the disability community,
Right.
folks. The whole field of assistive technology, you know, accessible equipment and so forth. The whole field of that has created possibilities for the entire population. Like when we talk about the Americans with Disabilities Act and you have curb cutouts. Well, it's not just people with disabilities using the curb cutouts or the elevators. It's not just people with disabilities using the elevators. So this is the philosophy part of it, to
Right.
say that you know you can kind of get the gist of where this is. So like say marketing. So say you're in a business to business role and say that executive that could approve a purchase for your company, say that person is blind or visually impaired, and then they're not really getting, the entire potential of your company, your product, or your service because it's not as audibly available. Like, say, with the screen readers on the screen or in your communications, maybe you're presuming seeing the element, seeing this, seeing that, and maybe that's not happening. So now that becomes a concern to a decision maker because they are blind or visually impaired, and you're showing that that is a weakness in your company. So that becomes the driving force, the attraction is to say, whatever situation opportunity we have for our company or for ourselves as a professional to be recognized as being effective, why would we want to say, well, a professional who's blind or visually impaired doesn't matter, or a professional who's deaf or hard of hearing doesn't matter, or a professional who's got a physical disability, and so the general mantra is that that's the conversation that more often than not typically does not need to be made. The conversation that is helpful is to say when we share that interest to be more inclusive. Okay, now what do I like to your point? That's exactly what you're asking, Ben.
Hmm.
What can we do? And I'm trying to cite some things, but that's the
Yeah.
conversation. And the great thing is to say, um, the disability community has a mantra: nothing about us without us.
Okay.
So if
I
you want
like
to be
that.
more effective for people who are blind or visually
To be
impaired,
included.
put out an invite to say, hey, our company has a project to improve what we're doing for the blind and visually impaired. Please come into our focus group or our project group and figure out what fringe benefits you might be able to give them for their time, or and that's what some research groups do. Research groups have, like, if you're a part of our research, you then, it could be compensation, it could be gift cards, whatever like that. Encourage people to be a part of it. So I'll give you an example, a little bit not showing itself right away in the business side, but it is there. It was part of the program I was in yesterday. So Sunday was the 36th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Hmm.
And so for an agency with Independence First, I actually have a couple of cards of the staff that I met there. So look at this. I went to a community event with a disability service organization, and I got a couple cards from the agency, and now I have a business connection with that federally funded, independent living center,
Hmm.
Independence First. I have a couple contacts to share with them what I'm willing to provide them philanthropically, I'm telling them I'm willing to donate resources for the work that they do. And it's very powerful because to be able to be a part of their work is huge. They serve a 4 county area around Milwaukee. Um,
Yes.
so that's a huge propelling element. So they hosted a celebration event yesterday, and I'm at this event. So the mayor of the city was there, and there were a few supervisors from the county board, so on and so forth. And so there are dignitaries there, celebrating this federally, um, you know, this federal accomplishment, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and what this means for Milwaukee. So they had a gentleman there doing agency work, and he's talking about this Connect group that they specialize in helping communities be better for those with sensory differences. So to be a more sensory friendly community. So imagine that the city of Milwaukee is saying we're going to be more sensory friendly. So they look at their parks and their buildings and,
Yes.
how some people just don't like to be in a chaotic environment. They have all this
Yeah.
noise. So to be able to create places where they can do what they need to get done, but they don't have to stay in the noise is huge.
It's
And that's what's
important.
happening all around Milwaukee. So imagine as a business thinking about that, because sometimes for the wow factor, the excitement and the energy, we're amping up the music and, we're pumping up and we're making a lot of noise because it's exciting. But then we have a person who's like, oh my gosh, I need to get away from that. It's overstimulating.
Right.
There are opportunities all day long, every day, to welcome people in. And that's the idea is you need to create an ability program with your company that creates that outreach, that invitation to say, hey, if you're a person that is seeing a way that our business could be doing better in accessibility, contact Fred or contact Phyllis. When you offer that, it is very empowering to get that feedback from the marketplace to say, hey, for folks with a mental health diagnosis or folks with color blindness or, whatever it may be, you can constantly improve your brand, improve your culture, and open up the gateways more and more and more and create this incremental success because more and more people are benefiting from what you do because you have purposefully, intentionally, and effectively and thoroughly made it that way and not finishing until a person in that demographic that you claim to be doing better for to get their review because again it doesn't make sense for you to say how great you're doing for the deaf and hard of hearing until you're in a sign language interpretation circumstance and that person who's deaf or hard of hearing is saying that or
Yeah.
expressing that through
Right.
sign language interpretation to you. That's when you know it's gone full circle when you get those reviews from those individuals.
Yes. Um, and you organized a massive telethon for the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act to provide edutainment and shift cultural paradigms. So, what is your ultimate vision for how media and edutainment can change the way local businesses operate and hire?
Yeah, so this is a credit to Stu Newmeyer of SLTV out of Florida. He is the one that, close to 2 years ago now, told me that it's his vision that I'm working from. He said that if we think of MDA telethons from decades ago with Jerry Lewis, and to look at the response that that got year in and year out for that whole time that Jerry Lewis sponsored the telethons for MDA and the Labor Day weekend pursuit. And Jerry Lewis was an entertainer, right? And it was very educational because we all learned about muscular dystrophy in a way that otherwise would not have happened if it wasn't for the fact that Jerry Lewis as an entertainer came on to be the spokesperson for the largest funding element of MDA, the Muscular Dystrophy Association. So in terms of companies, what that offers is that, like say trusted tradesmen or a networking group or an association or any one business with those they do business with can take a flagship charity and offer to help a charity or community group or community issue where they need more resources. Maybe the school has needs, and to run a community event. Like, say, for instance, in my school district years ago, for insurance reasons and liability and otherwise, it went away. But there was a quarry company, um, Helquist Stone, runs quarries around here for the stone that they extract from our area and then sell it out and around.
Mhm.
They ran Dozer Day, an exciting thing for kids to be able to experience this. Like, imagine a kid being able to be in a truck that is used to do the work in a quarry. It's an entertaining and fun thing to do. So that's something that businesses can think about, is to
Yeah.
say what value could be doing tours. Like, say, it's fun to say like a brewery,
Hmm.
does that tourism thing to give tours of the brewery, but really every business that has a brick and mortar element can say, let's run a community day where, as a charitable thing, let families come in, tour their business, and share your trade, share your profession, share your perspective, share what you do in the marketplace for educational value, and have some fun. Have coloring books or crossword puzzles, have games, do a family feud thing, because when you can do that, that's a very good um, positioning for your company, because now when you show that family friendly attention that you give as a business person, that becomes more personally attractive. It can only do you good that if something resonates in somebody's soul, like it just feels right, and you look like gut instinct, like go with your gut. When people are down in that place, I could go with company A, B, or C, and company A gave me this feel of, I just feel like they do a little bit more to share how they're good people there. I just
Right.
like them a little bit more. I could
Yeah.
go with
They're going
company
the
B
extra
or
mile.
C, but these are just cool people and they do fun stuff. And that community connection is important to me.
Yes.
I'm going to buy that company's product just because they've done some things that are over and above what I'm seeing in company B or C. These are huge
Yes.
components to decipher what you want to do in your business and your business journey, and for yourself personally, whatever reputation you're trying to give for yourself, and to say, when they say your name, why are they wanting to come to you? These are things that could factor in.
Right. Right. All right. So you've dedicated years to Project Die Hard, working to combat veteran suicide and spread hope. Through your work with them in the spirit of the Game Foundation, what do you see as the biggest hurdles veterans face when transitioning back into the civilian workforce?
Well, I look at, in business, I say, when we're in business or any of the 6 lanes, anytime you're leading, you can say you're in the habit formation business. So when
Right.
you're looking at trying to relate to a veteran, and say when a veteran serves in military, they've had habits driven into them. Aye, aye, sir, and all this stuff,
Right.
you know, that responsiveness they have habits, and it gets to the extent that it's like they enter into a bubble that has its way of working, and then when they leave that bubble, they now have a lot of nothingness, and now they're thinking of all of the traumatic things that they persevered, that they were able to persevere because of their
Yeah.
training and the support they got from the ranks in the military and what they have there. But then once they're released and now they come into live in a dwelling place and now all that stuff is just stirring around in their mind. It, to be displaced and to be lost is very problematic.
Yes.
So again, with the 6 lanes of life, it's like, okay, where is there an opportunity potentially for that veteran to connect to a faith community? Because a faith community could be a part of helping a veteran reground themselves. Maybe not, I want to say, like, for all veterans, that's the prescription, but for a lot of them, that could be a really key part. And then, like, when we say volunteering, to be able to be of value. So to be able to have the other things in life taken care of, to free them up to volunteer. We see veterans doing a VA service, especially to their brothers and sisters, to like come into a VFW or an American Legion or, all of these different veteran services. That is very meaningful that vets can serve each other, in those realms. But all nonprofits need to be thinking about that. How does our nonprofit work or not in the volunteer culture or to participate in our activities for a veteran? And again, we need to go to the veteran community to get that review. We don't finalize that review as a non-veteran. I'm not a veteran. So
Hmm.
I rely on all you veterans out there to really tell me how am I really doing in a veteran
Yes.
service organization, because otherwise I'm just exploring
Right.
otherwise.
Right.
Um, so and in education, like universities tend to have a veteran office on
Hmm.
campus. So if somebody's a veteran, that staff in the veteran office specializes in helping a veteran get as great of an experience in that educational fashion. And then in government, sure, there's veteran service officers and offices and, the VA, the Veteran Affairs, and all of that. But how are all the other agencies,
Right.
doing in being friendly to all of the concerns and particular differences of a veteran? Not to say that veterans are different and not to put them out in a different category. Veterans just want to be right along with the rest of us, but you're asking very functionally reentry, post-military service for these veterans. So
Yeah.
this stuff is a part of it.
Hi,
And then businesses like to say a
Yeah. That's my
veteran-owned
next
business.
question.
Kurt, are you here?
So how are we doing helping a veteran practically trust themselves,
Hmm.
like building trust
Emily, are you here?
podcasts, like
I
building
just came
trust of
in.
another
What's
person? Well,
happening?
you get to some of these issues and it's like we may not trust ourselves to be capable to run a successful business. So how can we respond to veterans to say if it's something they really want to do, we can help grow that with that veteran, and to do that effectively and keep doing it until we get that veteran's feedback that that's what they had been seeking. And then fun
Well, I
opportunities,
am
like
a
with
little confused right now,
recreation.
but we'll talk about it
um,
later.
you know,
I'm invited
there
to
are
things and I don't have
certified
links, so I don't want to
recreational
get involved in
therapists,
something if you're in the middle
because
of something.
recreation can be a therapy, like getting away from all the stuff, getting outside, getting away from their dwelling place, getting outdoors, going into the racquetball clubs, playing
So nobody
pickleball
should
or
have put
golf
the
or
HP on?
whatever it is. It can be therapeutic rec because it can help get them in a direction of better mental health. It can physically help their
All
brain,
right. This is
Yes.
okay. We'll have a
which can
meeting later.
be
I have a meeting at
crucial. So,
12:30,
but
but
then in terms of the
Emily,
response
this is
to these
why we need
veterans,
to have a meeting and
like right now in this
confirmation before
podcast,
things.
as we talk,
This
as we
shouldn't
have
be
our
happening. People aren't
conversation,
showing them.
edutainment, that educational and more entertainment flair, it can be like, great
But when you're
question,
getting set up
Ben.
for a meeting,
Oh, I
people
was
need
really
to know whether
interested
they're
to hear
showing
about
up or
that. Oh,
not.
Kurt, great job, Kurt.
It doesn't take
And
a
it
little time to
becomes
get set
more
up.
of when they shut the screen down and they're not
Okay.
looking at the screen
All right.
anymore and they go away, we run the risk that that person getting
I
these
understand, but I
insights
was
does
told to
zero.
show up, and I showed up
And
and
that's the
nobody was
greatest
there.
risk. So like at Project iHeart, we say, check your vet. So what we know
But I
is that
came in a little late
95% of
because it's,
people out
I was in a
there
meeting at noon.
don't have
So
a
Kurt told
vet
me to just to show
that
up.
they're
When I get
thinking
there,
of
no one was
check your
there.
vet. Well, the point is, I mentioned the
So
VA,
we need to create a little
disabled
better in our
American vets,
communication.
or,
That's it. Because I have other
local
things that
veteran
I'm not
service
doing,
officer.
so I
You
can
got to
be
put
showing up
yourself
for
in
you
these
guys.
communities, say, hey, I learned about check your vet.
So
I
it
don't
just
have a
kind of,
vet. Can
so
I
that's what we
leave
need
you
to
my
just,
contact
let's
information?
have a meeting
And
later.
if you
Okay,
all think
I
and if
have a
a
meeting at
veteran
12:30
feels I
with
can help
somebody,
them,
and then
I'm
I have to make
happy
calls so
to
I could
be that
get stuff
person and be
done.
a part
So I'll
of
talk to you
checking
later.
in on them. And the most powerful is when one vet checks in on another vet, but people can only do so much. So I call this an all hands on deck initiative. And why do we have check your vet? Is because if we don't, their mental health might tank. They might get down to a dark bottom where it goes to suicide ideation. And we might not be able to do any of this stuff for this veteran because they may end up dying.
Mm-hmm. And so in what ways can the trades and local business hubs, set up, step up to provide more authentic and long-term support and mentorship for veterans? I heard you speak on that a little bit. I just wanted to make sure I asked the question, have a direct answer on how a business can really support their veterans.
Well, I think starts with the all day long, every day acumen. So when you look at your business activities, like say a networking group, to say, how are we doing inviting those veteran professionals into our network? Because
Yeah,
success breeds success. So anytime you get a veteran involved, that becomes a stepping stone towards more veterans getting involved.
yes.
So if you go to a chamber meeting, to advocate and to say, how are we as the Chamber of Commerce doing, getting a showing of veterans at our chamber meetings
Right.
and events? If there's a chamber golf outing, how many veterans played golf during the chamber golf outing? These are things we can advocate for and lead and keep on until veterans say we're doing a good job. Because a non-vet can tell another non-vet, like to tell me, hey, Kirk, good job. But to me, it's like, yeah, I love that. I'm grateful for that positive feedback. It is meaningful that I'm on the right track. But again, we have not come full circle until the veterans give their feedback, because, they're the prescribers of the right way.
Yes.
Non-vets we can try all we may be there. It may be when a veteran reviews what you're doing, they may say, you got it. Good job. Thank you for doing it. The
Mm-hmm.
veteran may say that, so I don't want to discount what we do when we don't have that check-in yet, but we want to encourage that. So the idea is with all things, if you have a luncheon, if you're going out and you're going to a restaurant and you're having a business lunch with a handful of people, just for the sake of it, say, let's do an outreach to a veteran and have a veteran sit at that table and see what opportunity it may be for the business group that veteran can give their expertise from military and so forth, to what's going on in tactics and all the things. But then what benefit it could be to that veteran and build that relationship. See, that's the key. We have to stop waiting for that perfect opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it to do it.
Just do it.
And if you invite and that veteran finds value, they'll show up if they've got value. And if you invite, and you're not getting response, well, that means we haven't developed the proper value to have it be meaningful for a veteran. So reach out to the VA or the veteran service officer, look up the veteran services in the area and say, hey, I've been trying to do something good for veterans and it doesn't seem to be connecting. Can you help us at our ABC company? Can you help us do this meaningful? And that's where you can keep going with that to create a collective impact. Because when we want veterans to have that more meaningful participation in our community, business community and otherwise, we got to create that dialogue with veterans. But again, if you can have churches saying this is how we've been having success at our churches and with our Lions Club, this is how we've been having success in our Lions Club with veterans and with the colleges, with our veteran office. This is how we have success in our veteran office. And with that veteran service officer being, part of it. And they're always excited when they hear businesses at the table and the college and, the churches and the Lions Club or whatever. They love to be at that table. And then again, all the fun things, all the different rec groups and concerts, music, that's a huge thing. Like performing arts is a big deal, that if in the performing arts community, if veterans can be more and more a part of performing arts, that is like a therapeutic recreation, type of thing. It has a great mental health benefit for the veteran. And so that's the idea, is what we do all day long, every day, to think with each and everything. That's the discipline.
Yes.
Why would we skip any one thing on how a veteran could be more involved? But then if you can create this like little meeting, like as a company, you could do that. Create a little meeting and say, we're inviting the churches, we're inviting the Lions Kiwanis Rotary, the Chamber of Commerce, we're inviting the college, we're inviting the veteran service officer, we're inviting the rec clubs, like maybe people in your business, they do downhill skiing, the alpine skiing, whatever, and say, let's invite these groups. Let's talk about how we all can do better in creating this participation with the veteran community.
Yes.
That's
So
the potential we have.
that's very strategic. Your work with the Regenerative Media Alliance really focuses heavily on commensality and the social regeneration and connection that happens around sharing food. So, how can we better use media campaigns and community networks to address critical issues like food deserts and nutritional access?
Yeah, so a big part of it is to check in with the folks already doing this work. So like Hunger Task Force or whoever it is in areas already doing this work, and you're bringing it out from the Regenerative Media Alliance standpoint. So the big key here is I love being a part of this group, because with what I do in media, my passion is to help everybody use media better. Like when I was talking about Independence First, and they're talking about how they wrote for a grant to do more stuff with the disability advocacy to get that out there in media. So that's like with your topic of food scarcity and hunger and malnutrition and all these food topics, is to think about, how are we doing on a social media campaign? How are we doing press releases to get it out there to the news networks, to build household awareness, to get to the journalists from the newspaper standpoint, or bloggers or influencers? And, because that's the big key is, folks who are experiencing this insecurity, it kind of becomes a social services issue, and the majority of population doesn't pay attention, or they're not aware. There's nothing there for them to pay attention to, is a big part of the problem. So the idea is we have to get back to, like I haven't been seeing like I used to 20 years ago or 30 years ago, like these commercials about Africa and all the starving children in Africa. And it's not because it's been taken care of. No way. It's just because we're searching for this way to get reception to the message.
Right.
So that's what we need to do, is we need to find ways to have activities to run like potlucks. So let's look at that you draw like 30 people to a potluck, and maybe 5 or 6 of them are experiencing food insecurity, and maybe they didn't put any food on the table for the potluck, but yet they're able to eat, and everybody's got plenty of food because the other 25 people brought plenty of food. And the fact that the 5 people didn't bring anything, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and everybody ate. And so you do a little service that way, working the potluck side of it and welcoming everybody to come and bring what you can if you can.
It's awesome.
But other than that, it's networking and getting people involved and asking people, what role can you play? It's not can you play a role. Every single person can play a role, and a lot of people play a role by bringing food to the food bank.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. Getting the grocery stores involved to say people can go in, they can take care of the shopping for their household, but then also can, like our water ski club. We do a December boatload of food drive. So we bring a boat out into the community and we put it out in front of a grocery store, and we invite people to go in and come out with what they buy for their house, plus put a bunch of stuff in the boat, and then we take all of that food from the boat down to the food pantry and fill the shelves and kind of fill that gap a little bit. So again, I look at it as, again, collective impact opportunities. Is what is the church doing on the topic? Map that into the solution. The Hunger Task Force, the nonprofits that have that mission, and where does their capacity stop that we can fill and extend. In terms of the schools, what are sometimes schools run a food drive and stuff like that. Where is it there? And then the governmental response, how does that work? Like with senior citizens, they run senior meals. And so there too, a senior citizen on limited resources might be malnourished because they don't have the dollar bills to really get the food that they need. So the senior services subsidize that a little bit for the senior citizens if they make it to these senior meal programs at the senior centers and stuff like that. There's all sorts of creative ideas, and families and children even. Like, don't underestimate the role of youth in solving these issues. Youth are very creative, and they pay attention, and they're wondering why we adults aren't doing this, that, or the other thing. Give youth a voice, and there'll be more people involved because we let our minors play a major role.
It's awesome. So, Kurt, you always say that when we're frustrated or overwhelmed, we need to go mad, which stands for make a difference. You are truly a catalyst or a catalyst for change. And so, where can our listeners go to learn more about Helpopedia, Project Die Hard, and all the incredible work that you're doing?
Well, first of all, folks can Google my name, Kurt Roskopf. Now, there is a Kurt Roskopf in Chicago that really enjoys seeing he does Google notifications on her name, and he gets a kick out of what comes through for me versus him being Kurt Roskopf in Chicago. I'm up in Milwaukee. Folks can go to linkedin.com/in/Hey Kurt, HEYKURT, and find me there. And the point of doing that is you can see references to these different things through my profiles. But otherwise, Helpopedia is helpopedia.org. Spirit of the Game is spiritofthegame.org. Project Die Hard is projectdiehard.org. But I do welcome you to stay in touch with me. You can email me through Project Die Hard and Spirit of the Game, because I do have Kurt at projectdiehard.org as well as Kurt at spiritofthegame.org. And folks can call and text me. I can represent these groups directly through a call and a text. and or text 262-372-1754. If folks are, not there where they would call or text that number I just gave, and they're more on the WhatsApp side of things, maybe being on the other side of the world, who knows, you can hit me up on WhatsApp, +1 414-514-0186.
That's awesome. Thank you all for tuning into the Building Trust podcast. You can sign up to be a guest on our website, thetrustedtradesman.com. There is an apply now button. So remember to check out the links in the description and get out there, be authentic, and make a difference. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody out there. Tune in next time.